The city of Shepherd, Texas, is a quiet town that was once a center of lumber at a port of the Trinity River, and still remains an important market town of southeast Texas. The railroad also played a big role in the city, especially the Union Pacific. Unfortunately, one night would take a dark turn and change this town for years to come. This is the story of the Shepherd train collision. On September 15, 2005, Union Pacific Local LEF 52-14 was waiting on the main track at Shepherd, preparing to head north on the Lufkin subdivision. The train was led by two former Cotton Belt GP 40-2s. The leader was UP 1385, and behind it was UP 1458. Both units were pulling 16 grain cars. Coming the opposite way was southbound Union Pacific Manifest train MPBSR-13. There were three diesels on the point. The leader was NS C40-9W 9669, UP SE70M 5017, and NS 2559, a former Conrail SD70. 116 various types of cars followed them. 61 of those cars were tanker cars that carried hazardous materials. Train movements were authorized by track warrants issued by the dispatcher in Omaha, Nebraska. There were no wayside signals to control train movements, so following the operating rules was important to protect trains from one another. While waiting on the main track, the conductor of LEF 52-14 had lined the switch on the north end of the siding so train MPB-PT-14 could pass through the siding. Once the train had passed, the conductor realigned the switch so that the local could proceed northward on the main track. When the last car of the local cleared the switch, the conductor realigned it so that the local could back into the siding. But the switch was never realigned to the main line after the local had come to a stop. Train MPBSR-13 was coming down on the Lufkin subdivision when it suddenly swerved into the siding that the local was parked in. Then, it happened. The Manifest collides with the local at 12:15 a.m., about 50 miles north of Houston. The Manifest was doing around 40 miles an hour when it slammed into the local. The engineer of LEF 52-14 was killed. The conductor and other crew members of the Manifest and the local trains suffered injuries after jumping just moments prior. 1385 was completely destroyed, with its prime mover and other components just thrown all over the tracks. 1458 had its radiator just slammed inwards by the blunt force of 9669 hitting it, while 9669 on the other hand suffered little damage. 5017 and 2559 remained on the track and didn't receive any damage. 11 of PBSR's cars derailed. One tank car ruptured and released 10 gallons of methyl isobutyl ketone. 500 people living in the area were evacuated. The accident cost more than $1.5 million in damage. The NTSB had launched an investigation and determined the cause of the wreck to be a misaligned switch that the conductor was supposed to realign at the north end of the siding for MPB-SR-13. After the original crew of LEF 52-14 had finished their job, a limousine was sent to pick them up and take them to Lufkin, Texas. Meanwhile, the local acquired a new crew consisting of an engineer, a pilot engineer, and conductor. The pilot engineer got out to inspect the manifest going by. The conductor also got out to do the same. but saw that the manifest was entering the siding. He told the engineer to get out, but by that point, it was too late. The investigators found out that the switch was still lined for the siding, and that although the lock had been applied to the switch, it was still unlocked and held the keys belonging to the original conductor of LEF 52-14. Because of this, it is likely that the original conductor of the train had not realigned the switch. After the accident, Union Pacific revised their procedures for operating a hand-operated switch in non-signal territory. The new rule requires that the crew member operating the switch must immediately notify the engineer by radio or hand signal when the switch position is to be changed. Also, the engineer and conductor must initial a switch position awareness form when the switch is realigned to the normal position and inform the dispatcher about the change. This crash is similar to the Graniteville wreck earlier in January of that year, when an NS manifest collided with an NS local that was also caused by a misaligned switch. In the end, 1385 was scrapped on site. 1458 was repaired, repainted into full Union Pacific colors, and returned to service. 9669 was sent to one of Union Pacific's shops for repairs and returned to service on NS with an upgrade to 4,400 horsepower. 5017 was repaired and continues to work for Union Pacific to this day. 2559 was also repaired and continued working for Norfolk Southern until being sold to Progress Rail in early 2020. 19 years have passed since the incident, and hopefully train crews are more aware of making sure to double check things before and after their shifts. Although Shepherd doesn't see or hear many monumental events like major cities, this is one event that the people of Shepherd will never forget.